So, Mr. Bérard, the first question here, when you really understand that there's a push to get 85% of CJAD students to be learning in French, even if there is a choice available to study it in English, it doesn't seem very legal to most people. How does this actually work?
Well, you know what? This is provided by Bill 96 in a way for CJAD, in the sense that it forces a student to study in the English system, to study a few classes in French as well. They're trying to implement that. It's quite complicated in a way. But I've been told that it works fairly well so far. So they want to extend the measure to university to obtain the 85% that you just talked about.
So I'm very interested in this. So it's in CJAD. They're trying to move it to university. I think one of the biggest questions is at this point you're 18 in university. Certainly you are, at least. How are you forcing that onto people? If I'm going to McGill, what happened? Give me a concrete example. I'm going to McGill and this changes what for me?
Yeah, well, it's hard for me to give you a clear example in the sense that it has to be to Mr. Dubreuil, the commissaire de la langue française, to explain what he has in mind. But in my opinion, I might be wrong, but it means that you have to force students to study in French even at university level. And I think that the biggest problem for the university level versus the CJAD is that in universities you have so many programs. Let's say, you're studying law, you're studying medicine, you're studying architecture, whatever. So there is no tronc commun, as we say in French, contrary to CJAD, where you have like a philosophy or stuff like that. So I don't know how you can implement French courses for each and every one. Maybe they want to adapt it depending on the faculty or the department. But here again, it's going to be like quite complicated to.
Well, especially if, as you say, you're taking all sorts of different classes in different departments. So the question then becomes, like, what is the legal pushback? What can the universities do to say, stop this, it's too much, it's too far? Can they do anything?
Well, I don't see the only way you can see that is in the way of that maybe a right in the charter, the Canadian Charter, or the Quebec Charter, could be violated. Maybe the right to liberty, but frankly, I don't think so. I don't think that this is a constitutional right at that level to study in English only in 100%. You have some language guarantees for our education system in Quebec for Anglophones, but it's for primary and high school. You don't have the same guarantee for CJAD or for universities. So you need to look elsewhere in the charters. But as I said, maybe the right to liberty, the liberty to choose. But here again, I'm not sure that this is the kind of provision that provides you with that kind of right. So in other words, probably that such a bill would be constitutional, but it's not because it's constitutional, it's necessarily good policy, right?
Well, let's talk about that, because the idea, my university years are way behind me, but the idea, and I just happened to choose to study in French, but the idea that if I went to McGill and I said to myself, okay, here I am, I'm doing this, or if I'm from another country, for example, and I don't really speak that much French, that this is becoming policy. What do you make of this kind of policy? What does this mean for places? Like, okay, yes, it's going to be complicated. It's one thing in the CEGEPs, but it's even more complicated in the universities. What does this mean for universities, English universities, do you think?
Well, I think that the Quebec government, if it applies that kind of policy, wants to send a message that we're in Quebec and the official language is French, and that's our common language, and we need to promote that and to respect that. This is clearly the message they would probably like to send if they go that way. And you have some jurisprudence, if I may say, in other regions in the world, like Catalonia in Spain. You have precisely that type of policy where you have to study at least, I think it's 20% of your classes in university has to be in Catalan. So yeah, probably it's their model right now, I guess. So they want to send a message. It's like a kind of a statement in a way, and probably send a message to foreign students that if you want to come to McGill, that's cool, that's good, that's a good thing for us. But remember that the official language in Quebec is French, so you need to learn, a bit of it.
We'll see how much is a bit, right? Well, because a lot of this is in the air, and that's like if it's like, okay, take a French class while you're here, or take these classes in French. So we'll have to see what exactly.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
that means, because it's not very clear at this point. Frédéric Bérard, again, professor, constitutional lawyer. Thank you so much for taking the time for us, and have a great weekend.
My pleasure. You too.